Thank you for joining us again tonight as we study on the Word of God. We're now finishing up Genesis chapter 22, another segment in Abraham's life. And it is now, Ishmael has been sent away, and now it's about 4 or 5 years after Abraham had sent Hagar and Ishmael away. Hagar found a wife for Ishmael. He's already grown. Isaac is growing up. Abraham is still living in the area of Gerar, right in that area between the Mediterranean and about halfway down to the Red Sea, to the Dead Sea. And then all at once, here comes Abimelech and Phicol. Now, Abimelech, if you remember, was the king of Gerar. Now, this may be the same Abimelech, but it may not be. I think it is. And Phicol is the head or the general of his army. And basically, here they come to Abraham, and they say something very interesting to Abraham. He says, God is with thee in all that thou doest. Think about that statement a minute. How would you like for somebody to come up to you and say, God is with you in all that you do? That is a profound statement that these men made unto Abraham. Here Abraham is an alien in their land, but yet God has prospered him to his extremely wealthy. He has favor with people around him. And now here the king of Gerar plus his general come to him basically, and they say, Abraham, we want to make a covenant with you that you treat us good. You're now a very powerful man, and we don't want you to take us over. We don't want to cause trouble between you and us. And we basically want to make a covenant not only for us, but for our children and our children's children. Now, why would they say that? You see, Abraham was a very rich man. And Abraham's life was full of miracles. Just look at Isaac being born to Sarah at the age of 90 and Abraham being 100. He prospered. He came in basically with nothing. Now he's one of the richest men in the region. And he also had favor with the people around him. In fact, Abraham was probably one of the most powerful men in that entire region. And his whole life was basically that of miracles. No wonder they said to him, Abraham, God is with thee and with whatever thou doest. Now, when they came to make this covenant with Abraham, they didn't make it just for their own generation, but for the generations to come. Because I believe they knew that the influence that Abraham would have would transcend multiple generations. And folks, little did they know that it's still transcending generations today, some, I guess, almost 3,500 years later. Now, Abraham agreed to this covenant that we will have peace between you and me. We will treat each other with respect. But then Abraham said, but I've got an issue with you. There is a well here that your men have captured, and we can't use it. We can't get to it. And Abimelech said, I don't know anything about it. He said, oh yes. Well, Abimelech set it straight and restored that well unto Abraham. You see, in that area, it was beginning to be dry there, and wells were very important. You see, wells are a man-made structure that pierces and is hand dug down into the water table where water that is clean and fresh seeps into the well. Without water, there is no life. And that's why wells were so important at that time. It is a deep source of life, of water. Creeks can dry up, rivers can dry up, but wells do not run dry. A deep well will always provide life. Now I ask you, This water is naturally cleansed. It is fresh. How deep is your spiritual well? How deep does your spirit go? How deep is your spiritual life? Is it only a spiritual life that is superficial and on the surface, or does it run deep? John 4:14 says, "But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up unto an everlasting life." This was his conversation with the woman at the well. Well, these men made a covenant, and they took oxen and sheep, and they cut them in half, and they walked through a blood covenant, knowing that if one of them broke the covenant, they would become like the sacrifice. They would have to die. Abraham then took 7 lambs to give to Abimelech, and 7 is the number of completion. 7 means it is done. It is established. 7 means that it is enough. And you can go on and on about 7 occurrences in the Bible. But you know, when you look naturally, there are 7 notes on a scale. The 8th note is a repeat of the first one. There are 7 primary colors of the rainbow. So 7 is a number of completion. And what Abraham was doing was telling, this is complete. This covenant is now complete. There were sacrifices. There were witnesses. There were promises made in this covenant. And from that, they called it Beersheba. Beer means well. Sheba means 7. Well of 7. It also means well of oath. And Beersheba is real, folks. Sid and I have looked into perhaps the very well that Abraham was talking about when we were in the Holy Land at Beersheba. Abraham then planted a grove, and he planted a group of trees, and it was a place of remembrance, and it was a place where Abraham called upon a new name of God, and that new name was the everlasting God, which means El Olam. My God is El Olam, the everlasting God.